Stop what you're doing for just a moment. Because if you're over 50 and you've been feeling exhausted no matter how much you sleep, if you wake up every morning with your body already feeling heavy before the day even begins, if anxiety has quietly become your constant companion and you can't figure out why, I need you to hear something that most people in your situation never get told. It isn't your fault. And it isn't just aging. There is something happening inside your body right now, something biological, something measurable, something that doctors are actively studying, and the solution is so simple that most people dismiss it before giving it a real chance. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to share may completely change the way you understand your own body after 50. And if you're a woman navigating the hormonal shifts that come with this chapter of life, stay until the very end because I have something specifically for you in the pinned comment below. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is a space where we talk honestly about what really happens to the body after 50, not with fear, not with shame, but with real science, real stories, and real solutions that actually fit into everyday life. Today's topic has generated more questions than almost anything else I've covered. Walking. Specifically, what happens inside your body when you start walking every single morning, and why the effects go so far beyond what most people expect. Let's get into it. I want to start by describing something, and I want you to tell me if any part of this sounds familiar. You wake up in the morning. You've slept. Maybe you've even slept a full 7 or 8 hours, but instead of feeling rested, your body feels like it's been carrying something heavy all night. Your thoughts are slow to start. Your motivation to get up feels distant. And before you've even had your first cup of coffee, you're already a little bit tired. Maybe you've noticed that your weight has been shifting. Not dramatically, just quietly accumulating, especially around your stomach. And no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to respond the way it used to when you were younger. Maybe anxiety has crept into your life in a way that feels unfamiliar, not always intense, just constant, like a background hum that never quite turns off, even on good days. Maybe your joints ache a little more in the morning. Maybe your focus drifts more easily. Maybe you find yourself in the middle of a sentence, and suddenly, the word is just gone. And when you mention these things to the people around you, friends, family, sometimes even doctors, they smile with recognition and say something like, "Welcome to your 50s," as if exhaustion is just the new normal, as if anxiety is just the price of getting older, as if the version of yourself that felt energized, clear, and capable was something that only existed for younger people. But here's what nobody tells you. Those symptoms, the fatigue, the weight, the brain fog, the anxiety, the disrupted sleep, they are not simply the inevitable cost of living past 50. In many cases, they are signals, biological signals that your body is sending you. Signals that certain systems have slowed down, lost rhythm, or gone quiet in ways that are far more responsive to change than anyone ever told you. And one of the most powerful ways to begin answering those signals is also one of the most underestimated. Walking, not running, not extreme fitness programs, not complicated workout schedules that require equipment or gym memberships or hours of your day. Just walking, every morning, consistently. And what starts happening inside your body when you do that, especially after 50, is something that researchers are now studying with serious attention and something that doctors are increasingly finding impossible to ignore. Let's talk about the biology, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. After 50, the human body goes through a series of interconnected changes that most people experience as individual, unrelated problems. Fatigue here, weight gain there, anxiety somewhere else. But in reality, many of these changes are part of the same underlying pattern. Metabolism slows down. The body becomes more resistant to insulin, which means energy regulation becomes less efficient and fat storage, especially around the abdomen, increases. Cortisol, the stress hormone, tends to stay elevated longer and higher than it did in younger years. Circadian rhythms, the internal clock that governs everything from hormone production to sleep quality to mood, begin to lose their precision. And here's what connects all of it. Many of these changes are significantly worsened by physical inactivity. Not caused entirely by inactivity, but made dramatically worse by it. Because when the body stops receiving regular signals that it is moving, functioning, and engaged with the world, it shifts into a kind of low-power mode. Systems that should be running efficiently start running conservatively. Energy production decreases, circulation slows, inflammatory processes that should be temporary become chronic. And the nervous system, never receiving a clear, all-clear signal, stays in a perpetual low-grade state of alert. That's the cycle that so many people over 50 are trapped in without even knowing it. And morning walking, consistent, daily, outdoor morning walking, is one of the most direct ways to interrupt that cycle at multiple levels simultaneously. Let me walk you through exactly what happens. The first thing most people notice when they begin walking every morning is not what they expect. They expect to feel sore or tired, or maybe to eventually lose a little weight. What they don't expect is to feel more awake. But that's often one of the earliest changes. Somewhere around the second week, that heavy morning fog that has become so familiar starts to lift a little. The body doesn't feel like it's fighting itself quite as intensely when you get out of bed. The reason for this is circulation. When we walk consistently, particularly in the morning, the body improves blood flow almost immediately. Tissues that may have been under-oxygenated for years begin receiving better oxygen supply. Muscles activate. The heart rate rises into a gentle, sustained rhythm. Cells begin producing energy more efficiently. And for many people over 50, this is actually correcting a deficit that has been building quietly for years. Not a dramatic deficit, not a dangerous one, but a slow, gradual decline in circulatory efficiency that contributes enormously to that constant low-level tiredness so many people chalk up to age. Better circulation doesn't just make you feel more awake in the morning. It improves every system that depends on oxygen delivery, which is essentially every system in the body. Now let's go deeper, because this is where the science gets even more important for anyone over 50. One of the central challenges of this phase of life is metabolic change. After 50, and especially during and after the hormonal transitions that come with menopause and andropause, the body's relationship with energy shifts fundamentally. Insulin sensitivity decreases. The body becomes less efficient at using glucose for energy and more prone to storing it as fat, particularly visceral fat around the midsection. This is not a willpower issue. It's not a diet failure. It's a hormonal and metabolic shift that happens to virtually everyone during this life stage. At the same time, cortisol, the primary stress hormone, tends to behave differently after 50. It rises faster, stays elevated longer, and takes longer to return to baseline. And elevated cortisol is directly linked to increased abdominal fat storage, disrupted sleep, heightened anxiety, and cognitive fog. Here's what researchers have discovered about walking that makes it so uniquely effective for these specific issues. Morning movement, especially when it combines physical activity with exposure to natural light, sends direct signals to the hormonal systems that regulate all of these processes. The movement itself improves insulin sensitivity almost immediately. Even a single walk can improve the body's ability to use glucose more effectively for several hours afterward. Repeated consistently, this effect compounds. The metabolic shift that felt like an irreversible consequence of aging begins to respond. But the light exposure may be the most underappreciated part of the equation. Morning sunlight, even on cloudy days, triggers a cascade of hormonal signals through the eyes and nervous system. It tells the brain's internal clock what time it is. It helps calibrate cortisol production, so levels peak at the right time in the morning and drop appropriately through the day. It helps regulate melatonin production, so sleep quality improves at night. It influences serotonin production, which affects mood, emotional resilience, and appetite regulation. In other words, walking outside in the morning is not just exercise. It is a form of biological recalibration. It tells the body's hormonal systems that have been running out of rhythm, to reset. And for women going through menopause or perimenopause, this aspect of morning walking is particularly significant. The hormonal disruptions of menopause affect sleep, cortisol regulation, mood, and metabolism in ways that overlap almost exactly with the systems that morning walking helps to restore. Which is why I want to point you to the link in the first pinned comment below. I've left a resource there specifically for women over 50 who want to understand how to support their body through the hormonal changes of menopause in a natural, research-informed way. If hot flashes, weight gain, mood changes, or fatigue have been part of your experience lately, that resource is for you. Let me spend a moment on something that doesn't get discussed enough. The anxiety that quietly settles in after 50. For many people, particularly women, this is one of the most disorienting symptoms of midlife. Because it doesn't always come with a clear cause. It's not always triggered by specific events or situations. It's just there, persistent, low level, like a background engine that won't switch off. For years, this was understood purely as a psychological or emotional issue. Something to manage with therapy or medication or stress reduction techniques, and those things can absolutely help. But researchers have now identified something important. Physical inactivity itself contributes directly to the neurological and hormonal conditions that produce chronic anxiety. When the body is sedentary, cortisol regulation becomes disrupted. The nervous system, which is designed to discharge stress through physical movement, never gets the release signal it needs. Inflammatory markers that are linked to anxiety and depression begin to accumulate. The brain's emotional regulation systems, which depend heavily on good circulation and healthy neurotransmitter balance, begin to underperform. The body was built to move, and when it doesn't move enough, it starts behaving as though it's under constant low-level threat, because from a biological standpoint, sustained inactivity actually is a form of stress signal. Morning walking interrupts this at the root. Movement signals the nervous system that the threat has passed. Cortisol begins to normalize. The inflammatory markers start to decrease. Blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and perspective, improves. Week after week, people who begin morning walking routines consistently report the same experience. Their thoughts become quieter. Situations that previously triggered intense reactions don't hit with the same force. There is a sense of steadiness, of groundedness, that was missing before. This isn't placebo. This is the nervous system receiving the biological input it was designed to receive and responding accordingly. One of the most profound changes that regular walkers over 50 describe is something that happens to their thinking. Not just mood, not just energy, actual cognitive function, the mental clarity, the ability to find words, hold a train of thought, focus on a task without the mind drifting every few minutes. And this makes complete biological sense once you understand what walking does to the brain directly. Walking increases cerebral blood flow, the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to brain tissue. It stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, often described as a kind of fertilizer for brain cells, which supports the health and growth of neurons. It activates areas of the brain associated with memory consolidation, creative thinking, and executive function. Some of the most compelling research in this area involves adults over 60 who began regular walking routines and showed measurable improvements in memory performance, processing speed, and cognitive flexibility. Studies comparing sedentary adults to those who walked regularly found differences not just in test performance, but in actual brain structure. The hippocampus, which governs memory, showed greater preservation in those who walked. This is not about becoming an athlete. This is about giving the brain the blood flow it needs to function. And for anyone who has felt their thinking slow down, who has noticed memory lapses becoming more frequent, focus becoming harder to maintain, creativity feeling less accessible, this is enormously hopeful because the brain at 50, 60, or beyond is not a closed system. It is still responsive, still capable of adaptation, still capable of growth. Let me tell you about 2 more changes that tend to surprise people when they start walking every morning. Sleep and inflammation. Sleep seems like it shouldn't be related to morning exercise. You walk in the morning, you sleep at night. What does one have to do with the other? As it turns out, everything. The quality of your sleep at night is heavily influenced by what happens in the first few hours after you wake up. Light exposure in the morning, particularly natural outdoor light, directly regulates melatonin production at night. When your body receives a clear morning light signal, it calibrates melatonin release precisely. Low during the day, rising in the evening, peaking at night. This creates the conditions for deep, restorative sleep. Without that morning light signal, when people spend their mornings indoors under artificial lighting, melatonin timing becomes inconsistent. Sleep quality suffers, and poor sleep quality then contributes to cortisol dysregulation the next day, which increases anxiety and fatigue, which makes sleep worse again the following night. Morning walking breaks that cycle at the very beginning. People who begin daily outdoor morning walks consistently report falling asleep faster, waking less frequently during the night, and, perhaps most importantly, waking up feeling like they actually rested. Not because they slept more hours, but because the quality of their sleep improved. Then there's inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the most significant biological factors in the aging process. It contributes to joint pain, swelling, cardiovascular risk, cognitive decline, and metabolic dysfunction. And it tends to be significantly worse in physically inactive people. Regular walking reduces inflammatory markers in measurable ways. It improves the immune system's ability to regulate inflammatory responses. It reduces the accumulation of inflammatory cytokines in tissues. And it does this while simultaneously improving circulation, which helps the body clear metabolic waste products more efficiently. The swelling in the hands and face that many people accept as normal aging often decreases. Joint pain in the mornings frequently diminishes. Digestive discomfort, bloating, and metabolic symptoms often improve. Not because walking is magic, but because the body was designed to move, and when it finally does, the systems that had been silently struggling start working the way they were built to work. I want to take a moment to address something directly. For a long time, the medical establishment's response to symptoms like fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, and anxiety after 50 tended toward one of 2 directions: medication or acceptance. Either here's something to help manage the symptom, or this is just part of aging, and you should adjust your expectations. But something is shifting. Researchers studying aging, metabolic health, neuroscience, and hormonal health have been accumulating evidence for years now that the effects of consistent daily movement, particularly walking, are significant enough that they simply cannot be categorized as minor or supplementary. The cardiovascular benefits are well established. Blood pressure often stabilizes, resting heart rate improves, arterial flexibility increases. The metabolic effects are now clearly documented. Insulin sensitivity improves, abdominal fat decreases, blood sugar regulation stabilizes. The neurological evidence is growing rapidly. Cognitive function responds, mood improves, brain structure shows measurable preservation. The hormonal data is compelling. Cortisol normalizes, sleep hormones recalibrate, the neuroendocrine systems that govern energy and stress response begin to function with greater precision. What's remarkable about all of this is not any single finding in isolation. It's the fact that one simple, free, accessible daily habit, walking outdoors in the morning for 20 to 45 minutes, consistently shows meaningful effects across multiple physiological systems simultaneously. That is not a coincidence. That is the body responding to the signal it was always designed to receive. I want to share a moment that I think captures something important. About 2 months into building a daily morning walking routine, I was climbing a staircase. And I reached the top without pausing. It sounds trivial. It really does. But if your body has been moving through the world with a persistent heaviness for years, if climbing stairs has quietly become one of those small things you just manage rather than do easily, then reaching the top of a flight of stairs without stopping and realizing you didn't even think about it, that moment carries weight. Because it's not really about the stairs. It's about trust. Trust in your own body. Trust that the body you're living in is still capable, still responsive, still capable of surprising you. And that shift, from feeling like your body is something that is gradually declining beyond your control to feeling like it is something that can still respond, still adapt, still improve, that is perhaps the most significant change that consistent movement creates. Not a physical transformation, a psychological one. The belief that your relationship with your own health is still something you have a role in shaping. That belief is worth more than almost anything else I can think of. I want to be honest with you about one thing. The changes I've described do not happen overnight. The body after 50 operates on a different timeline than the body at 25. The adaptations are real. They are measurable, but they build gradually, quietly through repetition, through the accumulation of daily signals over weeks and months. This is actually important information because one of the most common patterns I hear from people is this. They start walking, they feel a little better, they expect the results to continue accelerating, and when the dramatic transformation doesn't happen in the first 2 weeks, they stop. And by stopping, they interrupt exactly the biological process that was just beginning to take hold. The body doesn't change dramatically and then stay changed. It changes continuously in response to continuous signals, which means consistency is not a bonus feature of this habit. It is the entire mechanism. 20 minutes every morning is more powerful than 90 minutes twice a week. Daily walking that you maintain for 3 months is more transformative than intensive exercise you maintain for 3 weeks. The routine itself, the repetition, the regularity, the daily commitment is what trains the circadian system, normalizes the hormonal rhythm, and sustains the metabolic adaptations. Start small if you need to. 10 minutes is fine. 15 is excellent. Work up gradually, but show up every morning. That's the instruction. Before I wrap up, I want to speak specifically to the women watching this who are navigating menopause or perimenopause. Because everything I've described today, the cortisol dysregulation, the metabolic shift, the sleep disruption, the anxiety, the weight accumulation around the midsection, the brain fog, these experiences are amplified during the hormonal transitions of menopause. The estrogen fluctuations of perimenopause and the sustained lower estrogen levels after menopause directly affect every single system we've talked about today. Sleep, metabolism, emotional regulation, cognitive function, inflammation, cortisol response. Morning walking helps. It helps significantly. And I genuinely encourage every woman in this phase of life to make it a daily, non-negotiable. But I also want to acknowledge that walking alone may not fully address the specific hormonal challenges that menopause brings. That's why I've left a resource in the first pinned comment below, a comprehensive guide specifically for women over 50 that addresses the hormonal side of this transition with practical, research-informed approaches. It covers the symptoms that are often most disruptive: the hot flashes, the night sweats, the unexplained weight gain, the mood shifts, the fatigue that doesn't respond to rest. If any of that sounds like your life right now, that link is for you. And please know, what you're experiencing is not weakness. It's not you losing yourself. It's a biological transition, one that has clear mechanisms and real solutions. Check the first pinned comment below. Here's what I keep coming back to at the end of all of this research. The human body, even at 55, even at 65, even at 75, retains an extraordinary capacity for adaptation. The systems that have gone quiet can be reactivated. The rhythms that have lost their precision can be recalibrated. The inflammation that has been building can be reduced. The cognitive function that has been dulled can be sharpened. The anxiety that has become constant can be quieted, not through dramatic interventions, not through expensive programs or extreme willpower, but through the consistent daily act of getting up in the morning and walking outside, letting your body move the way it was built to move, letting your eyes receive the morning light they were designed to use for hormonal timing, letting your heart beat at the pace it needs to maintain the circulation your brain and tissues depend on. Simple movement, repeated consistently, over time. That's it. That's the signal your body has been waiting for. If you've been wondering whether it's too late to feel better, whether your energy can genuinely improve, whether your mind can get sharper, whether your body can still surprise you positively, I want to leave you with this. The answer that researchers and doctors keep observing is yes. Slowly, gradually, but unmistakably, undeniably yes. Your body is not finished with you. It's been waiting for you to give it what it needs, and it's much closer to responding than you probably think. If this video connected with you today, I'd love for you to subscribe and continue this journey with us. There's so much more to cover: the specific timing of walks, what to eat before and after, how to combine walking with other habits that support healthy aging, and the latest research on what's possible in the second half of life. This channel exists because I believe getting older does not have to mean slowing down. It can mean waking up. Don't forget to check the pinned comment below, especially if you're a woman dealing with the symptoms of menopause. That resource was put there for you. See you in the next video.